Welcome to our webinar, Agility and Adaptability, the Caribbean Academic Library navigating the COVID-19 pandemic. We have a very dynamic program here for you today with the University of the West Indies as the base. We are anticipating that this webinar will blossom into a session that is not only riveting, but will present the opportunity for discussions that would have covered how our academic colleagues across the English-speaking Caribbean have been able to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. We have panelists that largely represent the English-speaking Caribbean. This was not deliberate, but really it was the convenience in terms of who we were able to gain contact with. But we have organized our program in a way that will allow for robust discussions. And this is where we are hoping that our colleagues across the region, English as well as non-English speaking region countries, will be able to share how their experience had panned out during the pandemic. So before I hand over to Dr. Carr, who will be bringing our welcome. So with that said, I would like to ask Dr. Carr to bring our introductory notes. Thank you, Dr. Carr.
Hi, good morning to everybody. I hope all is well with everybody because we are still in the pandemic. So I usually start these webinars ensuring that everybody is well. And I hope you are all well. I see Dr. Rennick is looking well. Yes, thank you for that smile. It makes a big, big difference.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say how pleased I am to welcome you all to this conversation and discussion on how academic libraries navigated the challenges and opportunities that came with the COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome to colleagues from Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the world, because I understand that we have participants from Guyana, we have from Suriname, we have from Puerto Rico, from Belize, from the US, Caribbean, and of course our Caribbean librarians. We are very pleased that you took the time to share with us. As you know, we recognize there's so many things. When we look at just even at Mona Library here, we are seeing so many webinars that are taking place today on the campus. And so we recognize that you had so many competing experiences that you could participate in. Agility and adaptability. What a description. Being agile and adaptable are hallmarks, traits of most humans, certainly of Caribbean people, and particularly librarians, whose profession is built on a mandate of moving in the midst of constant change. So when the global community was overtaken and hit with disruptions and deaths of all forms by the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, librarians worldwide moved with alacrity to seize the opportunities, and I call them opportunities, which presented themselves. And I believe that Caribbean librarians stood tall despite the myriad challenges in our region. And so, why a Caribbean outlook on COVID-19? To make known and broadcast what is happening in the Caribbean. Because as Caribbean states, most of us are classified as small island developing states with specific economic, social, and environmental vulnerabilities, which hamper our ability to withstand disasters like COVID-19. Yet, we stood tall. Our Caribbean academic librarians stood tall. And so this is the reason for us wanting to share some of the information, some of the nuggets that we went through. As our campuses moved with agility to the demands of our governments, some closing, some changing their modus operandi immediately by moving online. As campuses closed their halls of residence and had students return home, as faculty negotiated unfamiliar environments, how did we respond? Academic librarians we found ourselves having to adapt so that our value and impact would continue to be seen and appreciated. For some of us, like the open campus of the UWI, some moves were not so challenging so we enhanced offerings. For some of us, we were solid with great IT infrastructure, and so we pushed ahead. For others, we moved quickly to be in the same spaces as our students. Still, for some of us, we ensured that staff were equipped and ready. This webinar is a testament to the work of Caribbean librarians, especially for us in the academy. This webinar speaks of how we engaged with all our constituents, including our own library staff, our students, and our faculty, how we collaborated with our LIS colleagues outside academia, how we negotiated with publishers, copyright owners, and IT specialists, how we went beyond our remit, how we became social animals, how we braved COVID-19. A highlight, and I wanted to just to have my
the PowerPoint isn't opening, Dr. Carr. We're so sorry about that.
Oh, it's right there. So can you allow me to share my screen?
You should be able to, Dr. Carr.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, no. I think you were bringing it up, it was just coming up a while ago. But let me go on because it's not that crucial. A highlight for us at Mona was that very early in the game, we engaged colleagues from the medical faculty to address our staff. And in that same week, we produced a COVID-19 subject guide, Agile Indeed. Thanks to all presenters who readily accepted our invitation to participate. They will share nuggets from their own experiences. Thanks to all participants, as I said earlier, who took time out of their busy schedule to share with us. I want to say a big thanks to the UWI Mona Library team who ran with the idea of this webinar and went beyond the call of duty so that we could have this. Thank you so much. You could move to the next slide for me. I just wanted to show my colleagues. Bernadette, the next slide.
Coming up, Dr. Carr.
Yes, I did this little word thing that I'd want to show some of what we promoted. We negotiated copyright, we were fast, we had compassion. We had to reprogram our minds We had to go online. We had to negotiate with publishers, all of those things. And then the last slide was really just showing our COVID-19 subject guide, which came out so quickly. I thought it was something that I should share with you all, but we can do it at the end. Okay, thank you so much and welcome, and we're going to have a great webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carr. You've really set the pace, and we are running into, we're having some, we're trying to share our program, but in the meantime, we'll be going to our first panel, from physical space to virtual platforms. And within this panel, our presenters include, our presenters are Ms. Alison Dolan from the UWI St. Augustine, where she's their deputy librarian, Mr. David Drisdale, University of Technology, Jamaica, Mrs. Genevieve Jones-Edman, reference librarian at the UWI Mona Library, and Ms. Audrey Sadler, systems librarian at the UWI Mona Library. So we would like to begin with Ms. Doland. Ms. Doland, we'd like to start with you for our panel from physical space to virtual platform.
Can you hear me?
We're having some feedback. Try again.
Is that any better?
There is an echo. Try again. Let's see. And do you want us to screen share, or do you want to control that for your presentation?
Well, I'm trying to screen share, it's not allowing me.
What is wrong with that feedback? Okay, there you go.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Is there still an echo? Is there still an echo?
Please go ahead, Ms. Dolan. We'll try to work on that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'm just trying to do something on my end here to see if that will solve that problem, because I'm hearing it as well.
Would you like us to maybe go to another presenter, or you think?
No, I think,
yes.
Is this better?
Way better. We're hearing you quite
All
clear
right.
now.
I think problem solved. Forgive the technical difficulties. Good morning, all. I'm very excited to be here and share with you. Our journey from physical space to virtual environment began in the last millennium, and we began to create a system of seamlessly integrated platforms to deliver services and resources to our users. So when the COVID-19 lockdown came on March 14th, and we were required to transition to emergency remote mode, we saw as an opportunity
I'm going up in my office.
and change. Our first challenge was facilitating access to our network. Since we were in complete lockdown, VPN access was required. E-tokens gave us direct desktop access, which meant that we could work as though we were actually in the physical building. These, of course, were unfortunately in short supply. VPN Lite allowed us access to the intranet, and that allowed for the management of HR and finance operations and our enterprise systems, Banner and PeopleSoft. We ventured into the cloud through the deployment of M365. This allowed teams to come together to meet, to share documents, to operationalize what was needed for the transition. And once that was complete, we moved to SharePoint and Outlook 365, and those are ongoing. And we expect this to expand storage space and allow for work in this virtual environment, which we expect to continue for several months to come. Of particular note was our ability to offer zero-weighted internet access for a 3-month period, that is from April to June, to facilitate access to the campus domain. Once students authenticated to the network, they could do their remote teaching and remote learning, and they could also access our e-resources without attracting any data charges. But what is good is a series of platforms without having a device for access. We were very happy to be able to initiate a laptop and loan service. And this was made possible through donations of 56 laptops and 500 tablets from Huawei. Now, we were also able to refurbish and redeploy written off desktop machines and gave them to needy students as well. Our core enterprise systems, therefore, we continue to innovate where we could, maintain for continuity, and upgrade where possible. So upgrades were done to ILS, Aleph, our UE Scholar platform. We added additional modules to it, and we have some movement in terms of archive space, our newest platform, which we are to launch soon. And we had recently gotten permission to mobilize that as a UW@edu level system. All our other systems, despite the technical challenges, facilitated back-end operations, front-end operations, interactions with students, and our bread and butter activities to be able to facilitate that business continuity that was essential. And that, in a nutshell, is our transition from virtual to more virtual. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to allow for questions based on our timing at the end of the session. But so I'm just going to allow Mr. Drisdale to take over now, please.
Okay, so pleasant good morning to all of my colleagues, wherever you may be. We have 3 minutes, so this is going to be a lightning presentation. Let me just start by saying the Calvin McCain Library had to close kind of suddenly on the 13th of March. And we just recently reopened for staff only on the 1st of June. So we were under lockdown for quite a number of weeks. Once we had to adjust to the closure of the library, we had to be agile, as my colleague previously presented indicated. So we implemented quite immediately our online reference services only. And what we did was to set up a daily roster of librarians on online duties, and they would make use of Question Point and our library social media pages, such as Facebook, to communicate with students and faculty members. We also had to quickly, those of us who are not very familiar with using the online platforms, Zoom and Blackboard Collaborate, we had to get to using those to communicate with our staff members. And for instance, we had meetings regularly using these platforms. We also implemented our liaison librarian services. Each faculty has a librarian, and so the personal email contact of our librarians was sent to faculty and students. Our staff members, the librarians, also had regular Zoom meetings with the faculty boards, and so work continued even though we were under lockdown. Our graphics department, for instance, also worked from home, preparing flyers, and information was posted to all social media pages, our student portal, our student union social media pages. And the aim of all of this was to boost our online access and use of electronic resources. In terms of internal library matters, we were mainly working from home during that period. So we did facilitate our students nonetheless by sending out advisory to them to return their books to the library if they could come in via the book drop. And the interesting thing we have been hearing about quarantine, it's not just for humans, our books were also quarantined. Those that were dropped off were quarantined for 72 hours. We also implemented a fines waiver, and students, of course, once they return their overdue material, they will not be charged fines. Partnership was very important during this phase, and many of our vendors offered free and complimentary use of electronic resources. And we are thankful to companies like EBSCO, Sage, ProQuest, among others. Many of them offered 2 months free use, and also some sent trials, links for trials to these resources. So our periodical librarian especially was kept quite busy during that period, linking with these publishers. And in terms of our internal mechanism to facilitate working online, we had weekly senior staff meetings to strategize and plan via our Zoom meeting. Staff was also issued with new laptops with VPN login, and so our virtual desktop were able to work from home as if we're at the office. Training sessions were conducted by our Office of Distance Learning for those who were not familiar with Blackboard and also with Zoom. And also we had a COVID-19 committee. The university librarian was a member of this committee. So attending these committee meetings, we're able to take back information for our weekly update to our senior staff at the library on Monday mornings. So in conclusion, I can say that the pandemic forced us to make changes. There were some good things that came out from the bad though. We developed new skills in video conferencing technology. We had more online meetings, and interestingly enough, many of our meetings were shorter than regular meetings that we would have. It forced us to demonstrate the relevance of some of the posts that we have in our institutions and to justify the continuation of our services. And also flexi time was demonstrated, the use of flexi time. I personally work from home, and I must say that I really enjoyed working from home and hope that in the future we can continue to do this. So the changes continue. We have to continue to be agile, to be nimble. We are not yet out of the woods. COVID continues. As a matter of fact, the pandemic has left us with 4 names, 4 children we can call them: COVID, Corona, Quarantina, and Zoomy. And they will be here with us for a long time. So we had better adjust.
Thank you, Mr. Drisdale. So we're going to move now to Mrs. Genevieve Jones-Edman, reference librarian at the UA Mona Library.
Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Okay, so reference services was one of the priority or core services planned for as we prepared to go full online in March. We already at Mona had a live online chat service, but it was challenged by inconsistency in library staff logging on per schedule, which meant that we had some downtime during our stated hours of operation. So as we moved towards full online service, we had to revamp our live online chat to ensure that we had full availability of staff during our operational hours. So the schedule that we created was expanded to include non-librarians or non-public services staff. So technical services staff and paraprofessionals were included in our schedule. As it operates now, we deliver live chat reference between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. during the weekdays, and there are currently 27 members of staff scheduled, 9 non-librarians, 2-hour shifts twice per week. This is just a glimpse of a synopsis of our statistics right now. We have main hours are between 11 and 3 p.m. And in terms of the types of queries that we are getting, about 24% of them are queries related to library services, while another 23% are research related by topic or author title request. The others mix is a lot of other. All right, I'm going to highlight just some key considerations in moving virtual reference forward. In January, I was preparing to do a research, well, I actually started a research on virtual reference in the Caribbean in academic libraries. There were about 2 libraries offering this, which was Mona and University of Technology, based on my research at the time, in the English-speaking Caribbean, that is. So going forward, I would say expanding the number of persons scheduled to include non-librarian works, especially if you have staff who receive library education or reference training. If they're senior paraprofessionals as well, you can consider it. I know that expanding reference services outside of librarians is a kind of debatable topic, which has been going on for maybe 2 decades now in the library field. But for us, we found it a success, especially because we also rostered persons, the non-librarians, with a librarian so that they could pass on queries, or we had a librarian on call. Think outside the library box. The reference service that software that we utilize for reference services, the UE Mona's Kayako help desk software. It's not a library specific chat software, but through Mona's central IT department, it's made available to the library, which means that the campus pays for it and it does not come out of the library's budget. Also consider blended or remote services. Blend in your remote services. So if you're offering live chat, still email and WhatsApp is also an option, right? That has proven very successful in terms of combining both when you're having a difficulty communicating with the user via live chat. And virtual references should not only be evaluated by quantity, but also the quality. So let's not focus too much about how many persons will come in, how many persons will come into the chat. Finally, I would say delegate the management of your virtual reference to someone outside of the management staff, a librarian outside of the management staff, or someone not necessarily the head of the public services. So in closing, I'd like us to just consider if it is our organizational or Caribbean library culture that is affecting our move toward virtual reference, seen as COVID forced us to jump there, and we did jump there. So was it that we were more tied to the traditional idea of reference being only by a few librarians, and so we were struggling to work that out? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Edman. Very stimulating so far. We're going to move right into Ms. Sadler. I do not think, based on the timing that we're running with, that we will be able to do our end of panel questions, but we are just assuring persons that we will still ensure their questions are aired later down in our open discussion segment. Please go ahead, Ms. Sadler. So Ms. Sadler is our systems librarian here at the Mona Library.
Okay, good morning, colleagues. In doing this presentation, I just basically looked at literature and noted that from IFLA's standpoint, libraries really rose to the challenge of providing services and resources to its patron during this period, and that a lot of time and effort was really invested. In the Mona Library scenario, for many years, we had been providing our patrons with various options to conduct their research. And we had developed a very robust search interface and web presence. And so we were able to leverage the technology that we had in use to support the new learning environment when the university went fully online. Our main areas of focus were ensuring that the e-resources that we had were fully accessible, and we subscribed to over 35 major databases, so access was critical. We also wanted to ensure that we were able to provide additional resources, and so through our vendors, we were able to provide access to 20 trial databases. We added UiPress ebooks. The School of Education came on board and allowed us to access their journals online. USpace, which is where our theses are held, were added to our proxy server for external access. And we also were able to add over 400 ebooks from EBSCO via the shared platform to our collection. We also looked at leveraging our digitization services by scanning, editing, and emailing book chapters to our faculty and students as they were not able to access the print resources. The business continuity of the library was also important. And so all meetings were now held by Zoom. And for us, we were not only focused on meetings, but we were also able to have a webinar which focused on the health and wellness of staff members, and external presenters were brought in who looked at health and wellness from a physical, a mental, and a spiritual, as well as work related way. Some staff members were provided with laptops to work from home, and the software which was needed was also installed. Now, there were 3 rules of engagement which we had to consider to get this done, and one was partnership. So we had partnership with our vendors, with Mona Information Technology Services, the library team, the School of Education, and then cross-campus collaboration was very critical. Persistence for me is very, very, very important, because it means that once a problem arises, all avenues must be explored to ensure that it is resolved and that our resources are fully accessible. So some things may take an hour, a day, 2 days, whatever it is. Persistence is critical. And then we need to be proactive. So we had to be constantly monitoring the OCLC database standards to see, have they made any updates to the standards for the resources? Constantly checking the resources to see, are they accessible? Have the links been broken, etc. So that was very important to us. And I think for us, there have been new opportunities. So we're looking at learning and development, identifying the technology skills needed by staff, and providing the necessary training. It has also presented us with the opportunity to review the library's website, because that is now the face of the library. So it has to be more user-friendly, more responsive, and more customizable. How do we review our workflows and our processes? Because things are going to change. And finally, ensuring that the digital collections that we build are accessible and meeting the needs of our users. And finally, responsiveness is critical, because regardless of the resources that you have and the technology infrastructure that is in place, unless you respond rapidly, then it really will not provide the desired results. And thank you very much for your attention.
And thank you so much for that, Ms. Sadler and the rest of the panelists. We will definitely have a lot of discussions which will be brokered from what you shared. I'm imagining that our colleagues who are not able to actually be presenting will see where they can make comparisons or offer suggestions in how certain approaches could be improved. We welcome your comments, so please, while we're not able to take the questions at present, we welcome your comments. We will be monitoring them, as I had said earlier. So we're going to move down to responding to our next panel, which is responding at 5G speed. Within this section, we have Mrs. Adele Merritt Bernard from the University of the West Indies Open Campus, and she will be joined by Miss Karine Bourne, our outreach librarian. So it's only 2 persons for this panel, and I'd like to invite Mrs. Merritt Bernard to begin. You're muted, Adele.
Okay, I've just been given permission, so I will jump right into it. Are you going to share this the presentation? I would need to be allowed screen sharing.
You are allowed to share.
All right, there it is. Is everybody seeing it?
Not as yet.
Not as yet. It's probably coming up, but we're not yet. But it's coming.
Yes. I'll move right along. On the screen should be a map of the Caribbean, with brown dots, which show the open campus sites throughout the English-speaking Caribbean. You can see that we work in a distributed environment. So from inception, open campus libraries and information services had to adapt in order to serve our patrons. So when COVID-19 came along, there wasn't a seismic shift in our operations the way that it occurred in other institutions, because we have always worked online. Previous speakers have spoken about the use of full text databases and online reference in response to COVID-19. I'm just going to point out one thing here. Both these applications that we use are embedded in our learning management system and the staff portal. That's like a good best practice because it allows ease of access and use by your patrons. They don't have to come out of one system to go into another to access the library and the resources. The other thing I'll mention about this slide is that we offer synchronous and asynchronous sessions for information literacy and even orientation. The asynchronous sessions and opportunities provided for learning through interactive videos, games, quizzes, and other learning objects are very, very important. They allow students self-paced learning, to practice self-paced learning, to do revision, and to demonstrate for themselves skills and understanding. Everybody sits in front of their laptop and we go through the instruction, but it's only when they're online at 2 o'clock in the morning with no help do they realize, oh, we didn't quite get it. So if you give them the opportunity to practice on their own, this helps with their learning. The issue of copyright in the online environment takes on an added significance because added significance with respect to permissions for use in the learning management system. We always want to lower the risk of infringement So we advise tutors, course developers about what requires copyright permission and what may not, and ways in which you can give access without infringement. Our collection development policy always focused on e-resources, open educational resources, and multimedia to support teaching and learning. And in the COVID-19 era, this is even more important because of the financial aspect, but we'll mention more about that later. What's important to note in our collection development process is that the library is an integrated aspect of the entire course development process. So from the time our concept paper is being developed for a new course, we work with the Academic Programming and Delivery Department, APAD, to identify suitable OERs, electronic resources. It may even be a website and multimedia that can be used to support teaching and learning. Agility, the ability to move or respond quickly and easily. Agility also implies a certain degree of awareness. You must be aware of the influences and changes in the environment in which you function and on the community that you serve. So at OCLIS, we're asking, what are we going to do post-COVID-19? How can OCLIS, which is accustomed to working remotely, improve on what already exists? Two issues here stand out for me. One is the issue of Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. Are our applications and resources, not just the ones that we purchase, but the ones that we create, accessible? Accessible not only to persons with disabilities, but to the wide array of emerging technologies used by all members of our community. People received stay-at-home orders when they were already at home. They didn't have their laptops from work. They just had their smartphones. Are our applications going to function the same way on a smartphone as it does on a laptop? The Open Campus has an app for the Learning Exchange, the learning management system. So that's something that we're looking at for the library as well. Secondly, given the financial repercussions that we've already seen and that will influence not just our institutions, but the students that we serve, how are libraries, or how is the OCLIS going to respond to this? Now, financial need is not strange to libraries, but the worldwide impact, it's everybody who's going to be feeling this financial strain at the same time. So how are we going to manage this crisis, which has added significance right now? Now, that's my presentation, but I don't want to end on a note of doom and gloom, okay? I think we should look at this COVID-19 pandemic as an opportunity, a call to action, a time for libraries and librarians to show up and shine. And from previous speakers, we can see that we have done that. It's what we do. My campus librarian, Mrs. Karen Lee Kwai, often says that librarians are capable of doing extraordinary things. Our responses to the COVID-19 pandemic have been and will be no different. With that thought, that's the end of my presentation, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that. That was really stimulating. So we're going to move into Miss Karen Bourne's presentation. I'm not certain if you had a PowerPoint, Miss Bourne. You're muted.
I do have a PowerPoint.
All right, so you can go ahead and share.
Just a minute, they're having a little problem. Okay. I see that my screen sharing is disabled.
So go ahead and we will have that enabled within a second. You can try again because you should be.
Okay. All right, it's still saying disabled, so I will go ahead.
All right, go ahead, please. Thank you.
I have a lot of pictures actually on my slides that I wanted to share with you.
You can go ahead now, Miss Bourne. It's enabled now.
Okay, let me try again. Okay. Seeing it now?
Yes, we are. So go ahead.
All right. Okay, so my presentation has a number of pictures from work that was done either on the website or as social media posts or on our YouTube channel. I wouldn't have the opportunity to share everything, so I just incorporated them into the slide. And because we're talking about the speed at which we move, I am sharing with you that Jamaica announced its first COVID-19 case on March the 10th, and by March the 13th, we were making our first related social media post. Over the time, we had curated and created a number of different online resources that we were able to place either on our website or on social media by the 19th of March. We added video tutorials and we created a YouTube channel. We offered on our website quick link access to a number of resources. We curated some resources that we thought the students would need and we didn't want them to have to search for them. So we created banner images with links that would take them immediately to those resources, and we also advertised those resources on social media. Among them was thesis consultation requests via our website. The different resources were provided by different sections of the library. The thesis consultation, as well as citation help and other kinds of assistance to students, was provided by Milieu, which is a Mona. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. It's our Mona Information Literacy Unit.
Don't be nervous. You're good. You're doing well.
If you look to the left, I'm sorry, to our right, you will see that what I tried to do with social media and other things that I was working on was to send out the message that even though we're closed, we are open to finding all sorts of different ways to serve our students. And I think that was our general attitude. I mentioned the quick links already and some thumbnails that you could just click on to go to access our YouTube channel. We had Instagram and YouTube videos to teach students how to do a number of things, including access our online databases. We had other videos teaching them how to access UWeLink, how to do keyword searching, things that they would normally come into the library for. Right, some of those videos were already available online. Some of them were newly created, but we made sure that we put them all in one place so that they could easily find them. The content that was placed on the website and on the other platforms was made available to different sections of the library. Dr. Carr mentioned already that Mrs. McCoy Johnson had done a LibGuide on COVID-19. We had a quick link to it on the website. We also, whatever we placed on the website, we also advertised the availability of those items on our Facebook and our Instagram pages. Okay, among the things that we advertised would have been like changes in our operations, because we started with limited opening hours and then probably a little bit more limited, and then we switched to online access only. We had some issues with students troubleshooting access to our databases. We made a video that was posted on our social media platforms so that they would be able to get past those issues. We advertised our various resources, including the new trial databases that we got access to. We pushed virtual reference. For the virtual reference, we did a flyer, as well as I did 2 different YouTube videos and mentioned it in other, not YouTube, sorry, social media videos. So it was on Facebook and Instagram, and I mentioned the virtual reference service on other things that we were advertising. For instance, if we were advertising a child database, I would say you can access, if you're having problems accessing it, ask our librarian. So that link was always advertised so that we could push the ability for them to chat with a library member of staff in real time. There were some social media posts that were just done for the feel good factor, because we know that people were stressed. So just to, I guess, commit to tell them that we understand what they're going through and wish them a happy Friday, or just something that would make them feel good. Some of the links, the advertising that we did on social media mirrored some of the links that were on our website, so that we could make it easy for students to identify. The moment they leave social media and go to the website, they could see that, okay, here is where you click to go to the trial databases, for instance, because the ads looked like the banner image that we put on the website to facilitate this. Out of our activities on social media, we started to also get interaction or increased interaction from our users, and I guess just the society on a whole. And to the left of the screen is someone who hooked us up on social media and offered to donate to the tablet project. That's a picture of him presenting the tablets to one of our librarians. Our followers increased, and I also added a direct messaging button on the Facebook platform so that it would be easy for anyone viewing our post to talk with us. I believe that if you could find a human equivalent to a 5G speed, we've been moving at a 5G speed. It feels that way to me. Our outlook for the time was user-centered. We adopted an attitude of yes, there wasn't anything that we were asked to do that we didn't try to find a way to do, even if we had any kind of resource constraint. I'm going to share with you at least one of our videos. Well, I can probably share two. This one was one of the ones done for our live chat.
Miss Bourne, we're
Yes?
just giving up if you can kind of wrap up.
Okay. All right. Whenever we share the presentation, there are the other links on them, and you can check them out at your leisure. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was quite a bit. So I'm pleased to see all the work that is coming out and all the ways we're interacting with our clients. So I wanted to take the opportunity. Were there any, based on our discussions in the chat, I wanted to give an opportunity for others to chime in with their experiences. Is there anyone within our audience that's from a small academic library that would like to give some input? You can raise your hand, because we really want to hear from as many persons as we can, as many institutions. If my colleagues on the committee could help me monitor the chat if I am missing someone, or the participants, if anyone's hand is raised.
Okay, Bernadette, I actually have some questions from the chat. Good morning to everyone. Lovely to see how lively the chat is. Welcome again. So in particular, the last comment you just made about including other libraries, Jardine had a comment in the chat. By the way, he said, great webinar. We've been getting quite a lot of feedback like that. People think this is absolutely wonderful. Now, Jardine's point is this: might not there be, he said it would have been good to have someone from the smaller academic libraries on the panel to hear their response as well. He thinks that generally speaking, regionally, UE and UTech tend to be the lead to take the lead, and sometimes smaller libraries get left behind. So if anyone wants to respond to that, I think it was spoken to earlier that really in organizing the webinar, UE Mono Library, really, it came down to who was able to respond most quickly and who we could get contact with and for. Other questions that are coming in the chat, one from Maria Cherie. One of the presenters mentioned scanning book chapters for faculty. Will this service be extended to students in the new academic year? What were the copyright concerns in an online environment in terms of content creation and service delivery? And Arlene also had a similar question, re-copyright concerns and delivery of content in regard to the digitization. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. So I'm not seeing any raised hand. So I was hoping that we had some other participants to the webinar that might be able to answer that first, or to make some comment with, oh, I'm seeing Dr. Harris.
And may I just say something as well?
All right, and then after Dr. Carr, Dr. Harris would like to make a comment.
just to say that with the copyright matters, we have a copyright webinar that's coming up later. And I think it will address some of the matters in terms of how we dealt with copyright issues during the pandemic. Just to say though that Jam Copy relaxed some of their the guidelines and the rules relating to copying pages of print resources. So we got directive from Jam Copy, which is the national copyright agency for Jamaica. And I'm sure in other countries that happened as well, where they relaxed during the pandemic, so we could copy more pages to offer to our students. But there is a webinar that's coming up later today at 2 o'clock on copyright, and I think a lot of those issues will be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. Has Dr. Harris been unmuted? And then afterward, Natalie Knight would like to make a comment. Dr. Harris? Dr. Harris?
I think she made a comment in the chat, so we probably might need to move ahead.
Somebody.
Dr. Harris, based on the comment I'm seeing from Dr. Harris in the chat, she was asking, I'm not sure if this is what she wanted to speak about when she raised her hand, but in the chat, what I'm seeing from her is a request for links to the material shared by Miss Bourne in her presentation. So she has quite a bit of interest in that.
Thank you for that. And we are actually posting some links in our chat, but we will also have further highlights brought out later down.
Right, and participants, those will be sent to participants as we extract, all right? Yes, Dr. Harris concurs that that's exactly what she wanted.
May I respond to a comment about the bigger versus the smaller academic libraries?
Sure, Mr. Drizzle, go ahead.
Okay, I heard the comment and I just thought to myself, no matter your size, when certain situations take you, you have to react. If somebody pushes the finger towards your eye, there's a reflex action. And no matter your size, your eye will blink. And I think when COVID-19 caught us all, no matter the size of a lab, we all had to react. And so I know that the smaller libraries also had their own strategies for coping with this situation. Agility was called for on the part of all libraries. We at the University of Technology, Jamaica, we had to put in place systems to ensure that our users were served, just as our colleagues over by UWI did. So I understand the comment that the bigger libraries, yes, but everybody had to respond, and I'm sure they have their own stories to share as well.
And if I may too, just to say that this is the whole idea of us having this webinar, because we wanted to share with all our LIS colleagues all over, whether you're in a small library, whether in a large library, we wanted to share some of the things, the little nuggets that we all did, that we think that going forward, because we're going to be in this environment, what can we choose out of all that we're hearing? What can we do that will make our users be satisfied? What are the things that I can choose from UTech or from UE or from the Open Campus? There were some questions and suggestions that were made at the end of each of the presentations. I think it is that the whole idea behind this was that we wanted to share what we did so that others could benefit as a community, as an LIS community, we could all benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Carr. We should definitely mention that we do have a colleague, Dr. Renwick, who is representing from St. George's University in Grenada. So we just want to remind everyone, we have actually scheduled for an hour and a half, and we will be allowing our open discussion at the end of the next two segments, two panels. So you can still hold your comments. You will still get an opportunity to have these aired. Going into the next two sessions, though, I'm going to have to ask our presenters to please stick to our 3-minute limit, please, as we try to get everyone's points in. So with that said, Dr. Renwick, you should be able to do your screen sharing. Dr. Shamin Renwick is Director of Library Services from the St. George's University in Grenada. After Ms. Renwick, we will have Mrs. Judith Toppin, Officer in Charge at the Sidney Martin Library at Kayville, at UWI Kayville. Then Mrs. Pauline Nicholas, who is the Head of Public Services at the UWI Mona. Please go ahead, Dr. Renwick.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I was asked to speak for 3 minutes on the malleable mechanism providing practical support services. The Founders Library serves the Grenada campus. It is one of the, as you were discussing, the smaller academic libraries. However, we serve the Grenada campus, a campus in the UK, international clinical students, and the university's New York offices. The St. George's University has over 17,000 alumni from about 120 countries. In the last year, the library has undergone major developments and reorganization. It was very much an in-person library service with a robust collection of online resources. We've had major outreach and library training has been undertaken in the last year. So then the unforeseen consequences of the pandemic unfolded. The campus closed by March 23, so no face-to-face interactions. Students and faculty, 80% of which are foreign, left the island within a week or so, and all library staff, 4 faculty, library professionals, and 14 paraprofessionals moved to working remotely. The library was called upon to be both agile and adaptable. And give me a second here. All right. Okay, so let me just, okay. So some of the new initiatives we implemented that were actually accelerated because we had planned, but the COVID pandemic forced us to get on to doing things very quickly, where the agility has come in. We had the EBSCO Discovery Service was in the process of being rolled out, and we had to get on with it in spite of technical difficulties. The same with the live online chat service from EBSCO, which was going to be implemented, and we had to get on with that. There were technical difficulties there as well that we had to handle. We had our first online workshop via Teams, and we marketed more than just faculty and students. So people from HR and the administration attended as well. We produced our first narrated video on the use of library resources, and we did groundwork on the institutional repository at this time. In order to promote what we had been working on, we always contributed promptly to the university FAQs, which kept everyone updated. St. George's did a lot of very good communication, and we were part of that. We sent regular emails to the deans and the student body for sharing, and many personal emails to faculty and staff. We kept up the collaboration in that way. We actually had to learn a content management software that was very new to us to be able to create the first issue of an online newsletter to promote the services and the resources that we were providing. In terms of supporting the transition to online learning, under the pandemic condition, the library's main responsibility had been the provision of online resources. We had to update and add content to our library's pages. We had to do FAQs regarding campus closure because our 80% of students that promptly left within 3 to 4 days took our library books with them. So we had to organize to have those returned and notify people in a timely fashion. We had authoritative resources related to the coronavirus placed on the website to counteract a lot of the fake news and a lot of the information that was not going right at the point. So we needed to make sure that our population had access to authoritative resources. The vendors were very kind. They gave us access to additional content and trials. We had to post these, make sure they functioned, notify users accordingly. We posted more handouts, more tutorials, more open access resources. We also chose to absorb the cost of the document delivery because there was no way to pay fees, and we had to ensure that people were getting what they needed at the point in time. We also decided to purchase ebooks only, no print, so we kept on purchasing, albeit at a lower rate, but we managed to get what faculty needed to support their online learning. We kept the library staff up to date, trained, and motivated. And that took a big chunk of our time. And I must say the staff responded really well. The professional staff really got on top of all of the work that we were doing. And we were able to do this through continuous communication for both work and fun purposes. We did not leave out the fun in all of this. We made sure that on our WhatsApp group, we shared pictures and we tried to ensure that camaraderie remained part of what we were doing. We had consistent professional development and training throughout this period. We just didn't allocate webinars. We also followed up the professional staff, looked at the items, there were quizzes, reports. So we tried to continue the training and the grooming and development of staff. We had regular meetings, and the last staff meeting was declared the best ever. But the regular meetings has kept the staff together, and they're all looking forward to the reopening. I believe out of this misfortune, we have better equipped and more conscious and staff that are more prepared to do both in person and now add online service as a key part of what we offer as we go forward. And I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Renwick. Really sounds like a lot was going on. So it's good that we get the opportunity to really share. So moving right along to Mrs. Toppin. Are you ready, Mrs. Toppin? Do you need us to share your PowerPoint, or we've actually enabled that capability for you so you can do that? Please unmute. Please unmute, Mrs. Toppin.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
We are.
Thank you. I've got the message that I could not unmute. Yes, please share my slides that I sent earlier. Thank you.
All right, so go ahead. I'll get that up for you.
I can share them as well if you have.
No, if you have it up, then it's best you share it. Sure.
Okay. The host has disabled my screen sharing.
All right, so you can go ahead and talk while we get that opened up back for you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My presentation will look at the providing practical support services. And the focus, of course, would be on the Sidney Martin Library in Barbados. I wanted to begin by just giving a timeline as when my slides come up to show you what was our timeline that we were working with in relation to the COVID-19 virus. How are we doing with the slides? Thank you. It came and went. You will notice on the timeline that between March 11th and March 23rd, just about 13 days. On March 11th, the COVID-19 was declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization, and within 13 days, Cave Hill campus closed. Are you seeing my slides? I'm not seeing them. By March 18th, the first cases were recorded in Barbados, and classes were suspended at UE. Should I try to share my screen because I'm not seeing my slides?
Yes, you can share your screen.
Is anyone seeing that? Are you seeing it?
Not yet.
Maybe we should just go ahead, Mrs. Topping.
Okay. So in short, we had a fairly short timeline to work with. Yes, thank you. And we were able to, within that period of time, by April 14th, we had prepared an information literacy presentation for the academic literacies program. And then we updated the campus on April 24th. So moving right along, the university established a committee to chart the path, the way forward in relation to the COVID-19. The library was invited to be part of this committee. But what our takeaway from that was that the focus of the committee was on how to facilitate online teaching and to provide remote access to for lecturers and students to have access to online teaching and classes. We took the opportunity to be proactive and recognize that the students are really going to need to know how to conduct effective research skills to support this transition. So we met as a group and identified areas that the library would focus on in relation to providing online access to our research, in addition to the ones that we currently had, which were the databases, etc. What this required though was an upgrade in their software and equipment to support the research. This was quite a task because one of the things that we recognized at the time was that we were kind of woefully behind in relation to the software that we knew. Please move to the next slide. In terms of how we collaborated with the virtual support, to provide virtual support services, we collaborated with CETL, which is the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, to prepare a voice-over PowerPoint presentation, which was delivered to first-year students who had registered in the academic literacy program. This was the first time that we had done this, and I think it was well received by the lecturers who teach in what was called the Foundation program, but now the Academic Literacies program. We also entered into agreements with vendors, collaborated to get online instruction tutorials, which we posted on our webpage. And these dealt with database searching and ebooks, the two areas that we felt that our students would need to have an additional information on to be able to complete effectively their online classes. We worked with our campus webmaster to revise the library's website in certain areas. Unfortunately, the library does not have a dedicated systems section, so we were heavily reliant on what the webmaster for the campus was able to assist us with, and they were kept extremely busy since a number of other places wanted to have their information updated as well. We had an extensive collaboration with the SITS team, the technology people, to ensure that we were brought up to speed in terms of the installation of Teams and other library software to ensure that we could be virtually accessible and work from home. The new service that we introduced was the thesis consultation service, which we introduced on our webpage. And this was focused, of course, primarily at the post-grad students so that they could continue to have access to consult with us in relation to their final papers and thesis. We also developed a LibGuide on the pandemic, and we continue to have our Ask a Librarian service as all part of our the virtual support in terms of providing information
access. And as mentioned with another presentation, we facilitated access to document via document delivery and waive the fees associated with those, with document delivery. So our previous focus was on the face-to-face provision of information services. We needed to make this great leap forward in terms of providing online access and online learning. So we felt that we were very proactive in this regard in terms of promoting our information services. We moved to provide, in addition to the PowerPoint presentations, we provided online research support through the liaison librarians. We informed faculty by email of the services that were available while we were on lockdown. And the liaison librarians provided online research support through Zoom, Teams, the phone, email, WhatsApp. And reports feedback indicate that sometimes WhatsApp video was a very, very useful way in terms of being able to have a one-on-one with students who required assistance. We also promoted our library services quite effectively, I feel, through social media. Our Facebook page, there's a UE Chill app, which we also use, like liaison librarians use their personal accounts in UE Chill to contact students, and in many instances got a very favorable response. We use our Facebook page not only to inform on our services, but to also inform on the types of issues that were being raised, not only by our fellow librarians around the Caribbean, but internationally as well. And this was through our feed and all other areas such as media literacy that occurred. So on transition, we felt that this was, as mentioned by many other speakers, this was an opportunity for us to change, to increase our online access. We felt that we were able to put certain systems in place that we hope that we can build on. We were able to upgrade our software. We felt that the lack of face-to-face contact and the reduced feedback caused by having to not have that face-to-face was one of the drawbacks, as well as we were unable to do any effective evaluation of how the impact that we had on using virtual information training sessions. But we also felt that there were a number of opportunities for us to change, develop, and move on in terms of providing this platform, because I think this is the kind of situation that's going to be with us for some time. There was a steep learning curve. We did have training on Teams. We trained ourselves on Zoom, but I think eventually at Sydney Martin and at Cave Hill, we were able to put in place very, very useful services to provide for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Topping. It certainly appeared that UEKV was able to react. Thank you for sharing these points. So we're going to move into Mrs. Pauline Nicholas. Mrs. Nicholas.
Thank you. Let me just make sure. Are you hearing me?
We are.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Now, I was just told that I have a maximum of 3 minutes. So I need to cut down my presentation. I was going for the maximum of 5, now I'm told 3. So I just want to take us through 2 stories of how the library supported online teaching, and we are still doing so. We have supported online teaching and learning and research. So I will just go through those quickly. The first one is that we ramped up, or the liaison librarians ramped up online support. And this, I know the presentation earlier addressed or spoke to the work of liaison librarian. But I just want to say that on March 27, when the campus librarian announced that teaching and learning will resume on April 24, but in fully online modality, attention was drawn to the library's digital infrastructure and the adequacy of the online services to meet the anticipated needs. So support to faculty and graduate students was paramount. Clearly, it was not about perfection or replicating face-to-face services online. It was about examining the immediate needs and work to satisfy those needs in very meaningful ways. So knowing that faculty would need core text, many of which were just in print format only, to prepare for the upcoming semester, liaison librarians reached out to the department and the departmental representatives for a list of these critical resources, items that are necessary as they prepare to transition to online learning. So faculty sent their requests to the respective liaison librarians, and from public service, we packaged these loans and pre-issued them to the faculty member, and the faculty member would come and pick up at designated area at specific times during the week. There were items that we were not able to loan, so we would scan these or digitize them, chapters, not the entire item, of course, maybe a chapter or two, and email these to the faculty member whose task it was to make these available to students through the course container. And here we have some responses from faculty members that I want to highlight because it was, one, greatly appreciated. The next one came in, please convey my appreciation to the members of the library staff for their tireless effort in making the transition to online remote teaching as seamlessly as possible. And the next one, I am terrific. Those three really just blew me and realized that we have done a great job. Next. Now the other project is a special project that came on stream in April. And for this project, 500 plus tablets or laptops, I should say, were to be loaned to students who were in need. In other words, these students, they will be in the online environment, but they are without the proper device. So the list of needy students were sent to the library, and the library again packaged these based on the names of the students we would have received and have them charge or pre-charge the students' library's account. We had to partner with Jamaica Library Service as we looked at how these are going to be distributed, because students had no return to their parishes. Some went other places because of internet access or where they are working. So we had to partner with JLS and also other departments on campus for the distribution. Now, based on the location of the students, the devices were sent to the nearest parish library. And I must thank JLS for partnering with us. Now, staff too, staff too assisted in this regard. Here we have a liaison librarian who was just passionate about this student getting the device, because the day before, the devices were sent to Clarendon and this student called, needed for an exam. So this liaison librarian decided that he would go to see his mother and of course, on the way, make arrangement for this delivery. And I must say thanks. Now, this other student here, she's from Montego Bay. And again, they went down to St. James the day before. And she was so concerned and worried that she would not have the device. And so I recall that this gentleman is a land valuator who works in Montego Bay. And so I found him in Port Maria and took the device down to him. And of course, the student visited his office and collected the device. So I checked up on these two students because of the concern they had. And asked, how are things going? And the first one, Mushinden, he said, all is going well. So I said, how would you rate the service? On 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, 10, straight 10. This other student said, appreciated immensely, I would rate it 7.5. And of course, he gave us the thumbs up. Next. Now, what have I learned from all of this? A few claims have been circulated for some time that confirm certain things and in some instances refute what I've been hearing. For instance, the experience confirmed that academic librarians are vital, they are versatile, and they are very much visible within the UII community. It also confirmed to me that academic librarians can make things happen. Tell us what you wish to have done, and it will be done. We'll find a way of getting it done. The services that librarians provide are irreplaceable in a knowledge society. That came home strongly. So there is no truth in saying that librarian will someday face extinction. We are just a great group of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Nicholas. There's really a lot going on. So that was our panel, Malleable Mechanisms. We're now moving into the final panel, which has two presenters. The Future of Caribbean Library Services, Accelerating the Hybrid Model. For this segment, we have Mrs. Jessica Lewis-Marshall, Head of the West Indies and Special Collections of the UWI Mona Library, as well as Miss Nicola Palmer, Director, Library Services, Northern Caribbean University, also in Jamaica. So I'm going to ask Miss Palmer to go ahead. Your screen sharing, Miss Palmer, has been enabled, so you can control your presentation. Ms. Palmer? You're muted. You're muted, Nicola.
Thank you very much. I was waiting to be unmuted. From Northern Caribbean University's perspective, my screen share has also been disabled. So if you can go ahead and share for me, Bernadette. I'm getting that signal also.
Okay, you can go ahead. I'll share.
All right. From our side at Northern Caribbean University, we were as we look at the hybrid model, we were quite responsive in deciding how we go about going to meet our students, the extra mile for our students. And the basic idea is that a lot of the decisions that we had to take were guided basically by the what our academic administration department had to say. So we had to keep in touch with those individuals and to ensure that we were a part of the decision making when it came to how the university would close and what resources we would offer going forward. So that is important. And even for the 2020-2021 academic year, we had our ears on the ground and we listened to what the hybrid model would be as our students came back to us in 2021. One of the things that we're recognizing from NCU's side is that we have to position our staff to cater to and to accommodate a largely freshman cohort. Because as we listen to academic administration, one of the models that they are putting forward is that they would have freshmen only. That's one of the models, freshmen only on campus for probably that first semester. And we know that freshmen require greater support than the other persons who are second, third, and fourth years. So we have to position ourselves as staff to make sure that we can accommodate and engage that predominantly freshman group. Also, We recognize too, as the university considers the model for how they would administer the semester, we recognize that we have to prepare online resources for high priority courses within a possible 10-week semester. The semester is usually 15 weeks, but as the university experiments with how they are going to serve our students best, social distancing and other things that we have to put in place for the university, it may be that we'll enter a 10-week semester. If it is that we're entering a 10-week semester, then the courses that are going to be offered in that semester, those are the resources that we have to make available. We have started, this is something, a project that we had started some time ago, but we have re-energized this project of ensuring that we introduce ebook alternatives to print textbooks. And one of our library staff is dedicated to looking at that and seeing how far we can present to our lecturers ebook alternatives to the print ones, because a lot of our students are tied to textbooks, but we want them to recognize that there are other resources there and they can use those resources. Next slide, please. Or post-COVID to-do list, some of the things that we are considering. And the first one in our virtual space is that we will be launching our new look website. Our university information systems personnel have been working with us regarding that, and we are hoping that at least by next week, our new look website will be launched, and that will enable us to give greater reach and interactivity. We are looking too to create an online facility for library registration. Currently, library registration is largely manual. It's not tied to the students' registration initially, at their initial registration. So we're going to be working on that, because our graduate students in particular, who are all over the world, have been asking for that. We have been looking at how we can embed database providers, their social videos, whatever it is that they have on their Facebook pages or their YouTube channel, that we're going to be embedding these in our library website so that they don't have to be scurrying around, or students and faculty don't have to be scurrying around just to find these how to do videos. From the human resource side, previous presenters had indicated, and I just heard Ms. Nicholas speaking to it, that the liaison librarian program would have to be strengthened, both face-to-face if needs be and online. We have to strengthen that to ensure that all our academic departments are served by our liaison librarians. We recognize too that we have to provide directed training to our faculty in database usage. What we recognize over this closure for the COVID period is that a lot of our faculty reached out to us and reached out to the liaison librarians asking how to do this and how to maneuver within the databases. So that is good that they are recognizing that the training is needed and they have reached out to us. And for our own library staff, we'll have to solicit training for ourselves in terms of how we transition into the strictly digital space, because the learning curve will be there and we are wanting to make ourselves as malleable as possible and as trainable as possible. So those are our aims for this post-COVID season. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Nicola. We're going to move now to Mrs. Jessica Louis Marshall, Head West Indies and Special Collections. Mrs. Marshall, you should be able to engage your screen sharing.
I think you have my presentation there, Bernadette.
All right, you can go ahead. I'll open it up.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I just have 8 points that I want to share with you about how we're looking at the future of library services at Mona. In terms of reopening, we haven't been given any real model yet of what the campus will look like in semester 1 of the upcoming academic year, but we know that we're going to have to be seamlessly physical and digital. Physical distancing will remain, and our campus principal has given us this mantra. He has said we are physically distant, but connected in purpose. And so that's how we are going forward. The main way that we have tried to tackle preparation for September is through Imagine September working groups. And the library has 8 working groups, one for environmental safety, staffing, remote online teaching, health and wellness, outreach, technology, collection development, and research. And these groups have been asked to look at how we are going to deploy phased reopening, to give us suggestions of these particular areas, and each group has met and sent an initial report. There are some implications from those reports, though. I think, Bernadette, that's the second slide. You can go back to slide 1. Thank you, yes. So I'm at Mona Library working groups, and they've also been asked to submit budgets because we're going to have to make some adjusted or difficult budget choices because we have lost some revenues, and we have to be investing in some of the safety protocols and the technology going forward. Another area that we're looking at in terms of the future is staff and student safety. In addition to the usual checklists and protocols, we have started to investigate cough and sneeze protections like plexiglass shields. We're looking at how to retask our human capital. So if we do have to go back to physical closure, how have we retasked staff to ensure that people can still be employed and engaged at home? And we are also, in terms of staff, looking at addressing the collective trauma of the whole COVID experience through a very active health and wellness team that has done webinars, sends weekly motivations and that sort of thing. In terms of spaces, we've started to think about how can we lessen the density of some of our public spaces. Even though we may have fewer students on campuses, how can we reconfigure the labs by removing workstations? What will be the new group study guidelines? And perhaps in addition to our current courtyard, maybe we need to have more outside seating spaces for students. Bernadette, you can go to the second slide. When it comes to services, we've been doing a lot of the adjustments that you guys have been doing, but in terms of the future, we really need to look at self-service and e-commerce. If students are able to pay for things before they come, especially with regards to the reprographic unit or fines, that's going to make online and curbside requests easier to deal with. For example, with our collections as well, we're going to be trying to look at securing e-versions for the course outlines that are coming in, and generally just going e. My area is special collections, and in terms of the future, I think that we are going to be greatly impacted. We're going to have to accelerate our digitization and really seek to create extraordinary digital collections. The usual influx of international researchers are not going to come this summer, and maybe not for the next year. And so we're going to have to try and facilitate users by appointment, and we're going to have to do a lot of outreach to those international researchers. In terms of teaching and learning, we anticipate that we're going to have to do virtual orientation. We have done a few IL sessions online, and we are creating a portal, a container in our learning management system that will have library resources in it. Things to think about in the realm of teaching and learning, though, is online assessment, which we have not had to do that much of before, and also training our instruction librarians how to use to do Zoom reference and Zoom teaching effectively. And lastly, outreach and engagement. From the presentations today, we've seen that we really have to ramp things up and think of new virtual ways of communicating and new types of programming. I see that some libraries have had to do virtual book clubs or virtual coffee meetups or study groups. And so we're going to have to really start outlining how we're going to target our outreach in that way. We're also going to have to communicate to staff and our users in clear, updated guidelines to constantly be interacting with them and letting know how things change. And like Ms. Sadler said, responsiveness is extremely tied into the service quality that we offer is going to be very important in this seamlessly hybrid and physical model. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lewis Marshall. Wow, there is a lot for us to consider overall. I believe we can say that our efforts, our partnerships, our collaboration, transformative agreements all play such a pivotal role in our transition into this new normal. I'm glad to hear all that our colleagues across the region have been able to accomplish within the space of time. We clearly see the trajectory that as librarians, information specialists, we have to take to ensure that we're able to really continue serving, meeting the needs of our populace. With our time cutting down, I'm going to highlight a couple of questions that we received. Then just want to still encourage persons that where we're not able to answer them all, we are going to be collating them, and we'll be making an effort that our participants can get some updates afterward. But I was glad to see this coming from Jillian, who is at the Barbados Community College Library, so welcome our persons who've joined us from Facebook. She was asking if there has been some degree programs that we have found to be more challenging as an academic community to support using online resources or strategies. So I'm hoping someone from public services or from systems could answer this, or any of our other presenters, if there were some degree programs that were more challenging to support using online services, resources, or strategies. I'm going to ask my colleagues to help me to monitor if there is anyone trying to answer.
If I may answer,
yes,
and I'm not an authority on the degree programs, but what I do know is that many of the humanities programs, especially history, literatures in English, they were the ones who we had to reach out to for doing digitizing of print resources, because there's some of the Caribbean texts are not available in online version. And so we had to make a special effort. So the project that Mrs. Nicholas talked about was really taken up a lot by our humanities faculty members. And I even got a WhatsApp message from one of our faculty. I shared with my staff in a meeting that they were so appreciative of the fact that we thought about them, because a lot of their resources would not have been online. So, and we thought about them and offered that opportunity
Dr.
for
Carr?
them to have the text. And so,
Seems
yes.
like we lost Dr. Carr.
Okay. Not hearing me? Okay.
Bernadette, you're the one who we're hearing, Dr. Carr.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm saying it's mainly the humanities, and I know that, Genevieve Jones-Edmond is the liaison librarian to history, and so she had to be working around the clock. So maybe she could speak to that, because she had to be working around the clock with our historians, and I did get response from some of them. It looks like Bernadette may have gotten knocked off. Not seeing her. Is she there? So I don't know if Nicole has some other questions, or if other colleagues wanted to answer what degree programs were difficult to manage in the online environment.
Yes, in the meantime, while persons think about those responses, I'll just share other questions from the chat. Jodian expresses appreciation for knowledge sharing, but what she wants to know, this question is specifically for Dr. Renwick, what were some of the challenges encountered, if any? From Maria Cherie, she is suggesting that we have a listserv of collaborative platforms, and there are persons who are in agreement with that. Jardine would like to suggest the creation of online surveys, especially for students, so that we can ascertain that there are what is working and what needs improvement. He is making the point that data-driven services are even more critical during unprecedented times where funding might be affected. And finally, from Mark Jeffrey Deans, he wants us to shed some light on what considerations have been given to limiting in-person services to patrons leading into the post-pandemic era. And also, are there any changes in the current policies to reflect same? Thank you.
Are we going into answering the questions?
Shamin, yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so just briefly, I'd like to say in terms of the challenges, especially for the small libraries, the two statements that would embody what transpired. One is managing online resources is quite different to managing staff and library services online. It is quite different. And managing office work from home during a crisis is quite different from planning to work remotely. And those were the two circumstances that we had. The transition took a lot of, the challenge there was managing staff and deciding you were in the office one day, the next day you were home. In my case, I was back in Trinidad, having to manage the staff remotely. And the constant communication and developing the projects and the ideas and explaining to people how work was going to continue because they had been accustomed to coming to work, and what did this new paradigm mean for them. And there were challenges for staff, people with internet problems, people with no laptop. There were things to address. And basically, you also had the pandemic aspect of things. There was fear, there was worry, there were concerns. And as a manager, you had to deal with all of that and to get people back in the mode of working. The webinars that were helpful came like about a month later. So there was quite a number of challenges to figure out, to get staff going, to get projects going, to get work enabled. And there was a steep learning curve. And as I just posted on the chat, the smaller libraries, all the principles of service are the same. It is only scale that is different. So you still have everything to consider and do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Renwick. Thank you, Dr. Renwick.
You're welcome.
So I'm seeing another question from Tracia Johnson. How likely is it to get large-scale ebook, e-resources rental system going? I thought that was particularly interesting. Can anyone address that?
It sounds like open campus, maybe. Adele answer that. I don't know. Adele, are you there? Not seeing her. She says she can't unmute her mic. Can the host unmute her?
Handle that please quickly so that she can give a response.
But I was particularly interested in Nicola's, what they're going to be doing in terms of just having first-year students on the campus face-to-face. So does that mean that you're going to be now focused on having first-year students in the libraries, and then you're going to be offering e-resources to the other year students? Is that what that is, Nicola? So everybody else would be online?
All right.
Nicola is not.
Right. We're trying to unmute her. Adele's microphone was just unmuted, so she may go ahead and begin answering that question, and then Nicola will follow.
The question related to the large-scale ebook e-resource rental system going?
Yes. yes,
Is that the question? Oh, I'm sorry. We don't actually do e-resource rentals. Patrons access our e-resources online, and it's this you borrow or download from
Adele, we lost you.
Yes, it seems we may have persons on and off now because it seems that we're now having some rain. But Nicola's mic is now unmuted, so she may go ahead.
Go ahead, Nicola.
Regarding the question that Dr. Kerr asked, it's one of the models that university is looking at from the academic administration's division of having first year. That's one of the models. I can't say just yet, Dr. Kerr, whether or not it has been settled on, but it's one of the likely things that they will do. So, so we would be serving largely freshmen from the library side, and you know that carries its own challenges.
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Were there any other questions from the floor, Nicole?
Just a
Yes.
comment.
Adele, you may go ahead.
Ms. Nichols?
Yes, just a comment. The question that was raised by Mark Jeffrey Dean,
yes,
of the policies and going forward. Of course, we have learned a lot out of all of this that happened, because originally we would have had one set of policies for face-to-face. Now we're seeing where we have to look at different policies. For instance, we had to create, at that point in time, there was the need for a policy regarding the loan of laptops. We had to change the policy to fit into the circumstances that we had. So, and that will remain in place just in case there is the need. Because for instance, we had to extend the loan period. Instead of students having laptops for 3 hours, we had to extend that for entire semester. And so many things had to change as we look at what is needed. So seeing where we have to look at our policies, and also as we consider the possibilities of pandemic and other pandemics, that we have to be very flexible in altering our policies in order to meet the needs that are there.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols.
The conversation still continues.
Yes, definitely.
And I think Mrs. Merritt Bernard wanted to finish her response. Her microphone has been unmuted, so you may go ahead.
Well, I actually typed the response in the chat, so it's there. We can move on to another question since we have such limited time.
I just wanted to say something about Mark Jeffrey Dean's question, because it's right in front of me. Consideration about in-person services to patrons leading into the post. Because students are not on the campus, certainly at Mona as yet, and I think it's the same for most of the other academic libraries. What we have been doing is that we have decided that for staff, we could do on a case-by-case basis for staff, if they need a particular resource which can't be loaned out, like, some special collections, material, that kind of stuff, we may do an in-service where they can come in and use a particular area. But because we have not put everything in place for students to be in the library, we're asking students to work through their faculty members. So if they need a particular resource, then their faculty member could, because we're still doing the curbside pickup for faculty. And that's just at Mona, because we have that.
Thank you, Dr. Carr. So we are at the top of 2 hours. We have to break our webinar at this point. So I'm going to ask, thank you for all the comments so far. We are going to be collating, as I said, and we'll be addressing where questions are directed to particular panels or individuals. We will get them answered. At this point, I'm going to ask Mrs. Karen Terrell to just quickly offer us a vote of thanks. Mrs. Terrell?
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Warren Johnson. Good afternoon, everyone. I've been asked to offer the vote of thanks, so I won't be long. So here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. It has been a very engaging and informative session. Thankful I was able to be a part of it. Please indulge me as I thank the persons who have made this webinar possible. You have the presenters. I would like to say thank you to the presenters who took the time from their busy schedule to share with us how they have been managing, coping during this new normal, moving from a physical space to virtual realm of serving our diverse clientele, sharing with us what they did, policies they put in place, protocols, pros and cons, and what worked and what did not work, and moving forward. We thank you for this engaging and informative session. To the participants, the attendees, I would like to thank these persons for their overwhelming support. Thank you for engaging, for the questions you have offered, and I hope we can continue the discussion among our colleagues going forward. The host, I would like to thank the campus librarian, Dr. Paulette Carr, for supporting and aiding us in seeing the bigger picture and getting this webinar to fruition. Thank you to the webinar team who work assiduously in putting this session together during this pandemic crisis, contacting the participants, preparing flyers, programs, the system teams for affording us a seamless effort in presenting to our participants, connectivity issues, dealing with bandwidth, setting up, our moderator, Mrs. Bernadette Worrell Johnson, thank you very much. And we hope to continue the conversation going forward. Just to say a few points, a few phrases I've come across while the presenters were presenting. 3 rules of engagement to keep in mind: partnership, persistent, proactiveness. Responsiveness is critical. Opportunities, we librarians should take this opportunity to show up and shine. I like that one. Pushing of virtual reference aided by paraprofessionals. Physically distancing, but connected in persons. I think Mrs. Marshall spoke to that one, coming from our very own principle. Retasking human capital. Human capital is very important. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Terrell. And as she said, we will be keeping the conversation going. And with that, I'm going to, again, our presenters who came and showed up, really showed up all the way. Our team, as Mrs. Terrell mentioned, all the support that we've gotten. You, our attendees, we would not have the discussion if you weren't here. So with that, we're going to end our webinar, Agility and Adaptability, the Caribbean Academic Library Navigating the COVID-19 Pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you all. Yay.